Hi, everyone. It is Friday, and this is the Parent Exchange here at Parent Support for Online Learning. And I am here today, my good friend and my personal advocacy hero, and a hero to many folks across the country. I'm here with Virginia Walden Ford today, and I'm so excited to have the opportunity talk with Virginia and to have her share her so much of her life story is compelling, inspiring, and I think challenging times that we're living in right now, I think she has a lot of wisdom to share with us. I'll just start by saying Virginia's in Little Rock today. I'm in Colorado, and I'm having weather here. So should we get a big lightning or thunder and I disappear, hang in there, I'll be back. But hopefully Mother Nature and technology cooperate for us. But welcome, Virginia. How are you today?
I am fine. Thank you so much for having me, Tillie. It's just so great to see you and to speak with you. I'm just delighted.
Well, I got my volume on here. We're so glad that you were here, and you've had like an incredible year. There's a lot of parents in this group who they're not familiar with school choice. Many in this group started online learning because they were forced into it because of the crisis with the coronavirus. And so they may not be familiar with you. And you had this incredible movie come out last year about your life story, kind of bringing your school choice advocacy to life. And I want to talk about that for sure. But first, I want to talk about kind of what got you there and those early days that shaped you as a parent, as an advocate, as an incredible woman. And you wrote your memoir, and I think you kind of went back and like revamped it, didn't you, in preparation for the movie?
Yeah, no, actually, we wrote that in to come out after the movie so that if people had questions, it would be there. Years ago, I wrote another book that talked about the legislative fight that we went through in DC. But let me kind of start at the beginning. So
right at the beginning.
Yeah, hi to everybody. I am delighted to be with you. I am a parent. The best thing I've ever done in my life was raise my children. So anytime they needed me, I tried to be there. So 20 years ago, my 13-year-old son needed me. He needed his mama to step up for him and make sure that he wouldn't get caught in a whole series of things that would be negative for him. So reluctantly, because I was not a person that led the fight normally, but I thought this is really important for me to do, or I'm going to lose this child. He's going to be, in a gang or in trouble or dead or in jail if I don't step up. So I decided that I needed to speak for my child. And that's kind of how all of this started. And it was speaking up. So I went to school boards, I went to teachers' meetings, I went to school meetings, and it seemed like people just continually dismissed me, and in dismissing me, they were dismissing my child. And I couldn't have that. You know how we are. We like lions when it comes to our children, and that mother lion came out in me. And I found that there were people that really did care about our children and did care about what happened to them. But I had to make them understand that they had to do something to affect change. And much like what's going on now, we don't know where we are or where our kids are, except for what we've had to be forced to learn. And we don't have any idea what the future's going to bring to us. But I knew that, and I didn't know that as well. I didn't know. I didn't know what I could do as one person making a difference. But then I found that there were a lot of other parents out there that were having the same problems with their children and needed to advocate for them. And I say that we have to be advocates for our children, because if we're not, nobody else is going to be. So I became an advocate or an activist or whatever you want to call me, but I was going to fight for that boy. You know, he needed his mama to fight for him. He needed me to believe in him. And so I was blessed and fortunate to have a lot of people that were around me that supported what I was saying over time. And then I was even more blessed to have several hundred parents initially, eventually several thousand parents that wanted the same things for their children in Washington, D.C. And so we took it to the hill. You know, D.C. is kind of a funny town. We don't have a state, it's a city, but it's the nation's capital. And everything that's done has to be affected by Congress, you know. And the members of Congress are from the states, so they had no vested interest in our children in DC. So we had to make them, because we didn't elect them, you know. So we had to make them understand that the children of the district were really suffering. And so we took a year, and it was a lot, really more, several years, because there was a lot that worked up to the final fight. And we went and talked to every member of Congress about what was going on with our children and how we believed that our children were suffering in traditional public education. It was certainly not meeting their needs. At the time, DC had a 40% dropout rate, and that was terrifying for us to hear, because we knew that our children could be next. And so we told our stories. We used our voices. We stood strong and tough. And we told members of Congress that they had to do something to help us. You know, we needed them. And over time, they did. And it's in end of 2003, they passed a scholarship program, scholarship voucher, whatever you want to call it, but it was a way out for our children. And a program that it was implemented in 2004. And since that time has educated 11,000 children in the district. It provided them with the means, with the resources to go to whatever school they wanted to. And it was really kind of interesting, because my son was not a beneficiary of the scholarship program because he grew up. It took time. And but I was patient and encouraged, and I loved seeing other children who benefited from being in schools that met their needs. And that's where this movie came from. It was a ferocious fight. You know how we are as parents, you know, we fight hard for our babies. And it interested people who had access to Hollywood or whatever you want to call it. And so the movie is about our fight, but more than anything, it tells a story of a mother who just happens to be me, but any mother. This is a story of every parent who has ever wanted better for their children, which is what I love about it. And it shows how powerful the voice of a parent can be. During this entire pandemic, I have been watching Tillie and many others giving advice and information and giving people things to do. Parents are incredibly powerful, and that's why it's important to continue to have some kind of way to get this information to parents. I run into parents who say, my voice means nothing, and I show them the movie, because one voice can make a difference. One voice becomes something great, you know, because that one voice will bring about thousands of voices. At the time we were fighting, several thousand parents were involved, but not just in DC, around the nation. This was in the early 2000s, and parents' voices were being heard in a lot of different places. So that's kind of how I got here. And but I'm a parent, and I speak as a parent, you know, um, and that's the voice I want people to hear.
I think your message it resonates with so many. And, the very first time, I remember the first time that we met, and the conversation that we had, and I was listening to you, and it's interesting that you said, it wasn't just in DC, there were parents all over trying to do this thing for their kids to get them school choice, to get them educational opportunity. And as I sat listening to you when we first met, you telling your story, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many of us, our TSO board members, Shane Wilkins, and Mama Bears. We are Mama Bears. And there's dads out there too.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah. We're out there, and sometimes advocacy can feel a little lonely, particularly when you're in a battle. And I'll just, in case you guys don't understand the kind of magnitude of work that Virginia was doing during this fight to get the DC Opportunity Scholarship, this is what just some people have said about her, and I'll read it. It says, I was proud to work with Virginia and John Boehner, the former Speaker of the House, you guys, on this wonderful program, which continues to produce tremendous outcomes for those fortunate enough to participate. That's Joe Lieberman talking there. Another somebody that you might have heard, Virginia Walden Ford is a true American hero. That's another U.S. House Speaker, Newt Gingrich, talking.
Oh, yeah.
You had a lot of champions along the way, but not everybody saw it your way. Like you faced real challenges. Talk to us about how you kept going and who your opponents were, what were their arguments against you, how you pushed back. Because, a 2-hour movie makes it seem like, I got mad, I rallied some parents, and boom, 2004, we got it. That wasn't it.
Now, one of the reasons that I do follow the movie and I talk to parents, because it does it's beautiful, and I love the way they did it, because it shows, generally what parents go through. But, the opposition was teachers unions and anybody that didn't like, parents having any choice in how their children are educated. And so they were ferocious. They were mean. They told us from the beginning, they told us that we couldn't do this because we were just parents. And anybody that knows me knows that, don't tell me I can't do something because I'm just something. I'll do it. My parents laughed. My mother actually laughed about it. She said, ooh, they shouldn't have said that to you, because you used to get on our nerves doing that. And I mean, it was hard. It was hard and grueling, and but we had the support of some wonderful people. You mentioned John Boehner, Senator Lieberman, and they are our champions. They stuck with us and made sure that we had everything we needed along the way. But the opposition, which oftentimes were people that you knew, that you had worked with before, or that you had worked with on other issues. And what they told us is that we will be destroying the traditional public school system if we continue to push for scholarship programs and vouchers or whatever, so kids could go to private schools. But what we told them was, Tillie, you know me, I support every delivery system. I support traditional public schools. I support private schools, charter schools, homeschooling, online school, but it has to be of quality. It has to provide access to children to get what they need to continue having a successful educational experience. And so my thought is that all of these people would understand that that I would start off and I would say I want kids in quality educational environments. I want kids to learn, well. And I thought everybody would support that because who doesn't want kids to do well? And I was amazed during the fight at how many people were against us and how many people um, said things to me and to the parents that was just mean and inappropriate. And every time that happened, I would say to them, you don't want kids to be educated? Well, you don't want them to have a chance at life? Nobody ever could answer that. I've been saying that to the opposition for 20 years. You tell me why you're so against us having parents be able to choose the educational environment their children are taught in. I mean, tell me why. Maybe I understand. Nobody can tell me. So I decided that I would just continue to move forward for education reform, for school choice, because we know that we know our children first. We know what they're capable of. We know the kind of educational environment that works best for them. And why not be involved in it? And as much as people were telling us, step back, you're just parents, the harder we pushed forward. We were warriors. It was very cool. But we had lots of failures. Sometimes it didn't go through committees. Sometimes it had to go through committees that were, not very encouraging. Sometimes, the people that were fighting with us would become discouraged. And so the thing that I always say to this day is my children empower me. My children inspire me. My children make me move forward, make me fight. And I would carry, so during those days, everybody didn't have cell phones like they do now, where you keep a lot of pictures of your children, you hit a button and 20,000 pictures of your kids pop up. So I told the parents, find a picture that you love of the child that you are up here, fighting for, and keep it in your pocket. And I kept this little picture of my baby in my pocket, and when they would really make me mad, or I had to speak and somebody interrupted me or whatever, I'd take that picture out and I look at that boy and I say, baby, this is for you, and I remember being so happy at a hearing one time when it wasn't going well, and I looked down the road, the parents that were sitting with me, and everybody had their pictures out because everybody was mad. And that's what kept us going, God and our kids and those people that really cared about us, and there were many, and that's what kept us going. That's what energized us every day. That's why we woke up every morning and said, we will continue this fight. It was an amazing fight. And it was a fight. People don't want me to say that, but it was.
I think we have to tell people.
Yes.
We have to be realistic, and I think we sit through committees and hours and hours, and guess what? The parents don't speak first. There's all these other interest groups that get their turn first. And I don't know about you guys, but there's been times where we didn't testify till 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, babies sleeping under benches and hearing rooms. It's hard.
It is hard. I mean, I remember many nights of we'd go get the kids and from school and bring them back to the hearing, and we'd be there till late at night, and everybody was hungry and everybody was tired. But and you're right. They spoke first, so they would have some of the legislators that were on committees that were going to vote, they would have them thinking horrible things about us. And but sometimes we'd win, because one time we had a group of parents there, and they were we were getting beat up bad, and the people that were speaking were really negative and awful. And this has been going on for hours. And but at 2 o'clock we needed to leave to go pick up the kids from school. And so at 2 o'clock we got up quietly and left the hearing. There was probably 50 of us. But the next day in the paper it said DC parents leave in frustration and anger from what they were enduring in this hearing, and they just left. And we left to go get the kids. We did not leave. We were mad, but we didn't leave because we were mad, and we didn't leave in protest. We left to go pick up the children. But no, they saw what they saw, and I kind of went with it. I was like, yeah, right. We left in protest. So it's hard, and and I think about it sometime, and especially during the process of the movie, and it brought back a lot, from 15 years ago. It's been 18 years now, but at that time, 15 years ago, and they were asking, well, how did this happen, and how did this happen, and I relived it, and it was hard. I didn't want to relive it, but I did, and then I decided that some of the things that are in the movie needed to be in there, because parents need to know that they can be empowered. Their voices can, drive any kind of activities going on when it comes to their children. And so, but it was not easy. It was real hard. I mean, I remember I was threatened repeatedly, and somebody said, do you think you need a bodyguard or somebody to protect you? And I went, no, I'll be okay. And then I went home and thought about it, and I thought, if they come after me, that my kids might get hurt. So I actually had to sit down at one point and say, kids, I actually have 3 kids. And I said, do you all want me to continue? And I remember my oldest son, who was speaking for his siblings, said, Mama, you are doing great work. We are really proud of you and the parents that are there. We'll be okay. You continue your fight. I was so proud of them, and I did, but it was scary. I was their mama, I couldn't let anything happen to them, but it turned out fine, and I wasn't ever hurt. And my feelings were hurt many times, but I was never hurt. And we won when the scholarship program passed. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And to have celebrated 17 years is wonderful.
It's an incredible accomplishment. People don't understand how hard it is to get a legislative win, especially at the federal level. I mean, that's huge. And then for it to have this long legacy, that you've established so far. There's lots of parents watching, and Lori Marks Cooney says, it takes one person to start a movement, and then together the village makes all the difference. I think about my own advocacy. It started, so many of us, it starts because of your own kid.
Yes.
And then you start meeting other parents who have challenges, and you think, okay, I got it for my kid. How can I help these other families get the same, benefits for their children? And that spurs you. And you continue. So you don't live in DC anymore, and your children are grown.
Oh, yeah.
You are still very much an advocate. In fact, when I messaged you, I thought, I hadn't talked to you in a while, and I said, Virginia, you might be taking a break this summer after the movie promotion, and you're like, oh no, I'm ready to go. I'm ready.
Well, I think it's real. Something, Tillie. I said to the parents 20 years ago, I said, I will be in this fight as long as I'm able to. You know, as long as I can do the work, as long as I can use my voice to help somebody find their voice, I'll continue to do it. So I have no intentions to stop it. Not right now, you know, because I think that we're going to be even more, all of us, you, your groups, all of us are going to be really important to be involved in the opening of the schools. And whatever the new normal turns out to be, I think we have to be. But let me tell you one story, and this is why I can't leave. I have grandchildren, and you know, they are really important to me, and they, of course, and they call me, my kids call me and go, Mama, what would you have done? So I think I need to be kept up so I could be there for my kids. But a young mother wrote me months ago and asked for my advice on something that was happening with her child in school. And I wrote her back, and she wrote me yesterday, and she said, "I'm sorry I put this off for so long, but I mean to tell you, your advice really worked. So can I continue to call on you? As long as there's somebody that needs me, I'm gonna be there. You know, I am, and I fall in love with everywhere I go. I fell in love with you and your all your parents when I was there. And sometime on Facebook, it makes me smile that I still hear from so many of them, and that that makes your life feel important. That makes you feel like, there's something you can share. There's something you can give the world that means something. And so I won't stop, not as long as there are children out there whose parents need help. And
Well, let me tell you, let me back up a little bit. So Virginia, last year, the National Coalition for Public School Options, we used to call it Parent Boot Camp. We changed the name to Parent Leadership Conference because we thought that better represented what we were trying to do to establish parent leaders in school choice across the country. And so, as you always do, I called and said, would you come speak to these parents? And you said yes. And so you came out to DC to our conference last year, and we awarded you our very first and our only Lifetime Achievement Award for advocacy. And I just got to tell people, it was the best thing ever. Virginia and I sat and we just chatted like we're doing right now. But all of these parents who, you were new to them, but for years, I'd been telling this organization how wonderful you are and what an inspiration, and I was so glad to have you there. Well, they finally saw it in person, and this was before the movie even came out. But we get done with our little chat, and we're breaking up. It might have been before lunch or something, and it was like a red carpet. These parents wanted your autograph. They wanted your picture with you, and they are all watching right now on Facebook Live. And as you're talking, there's little hearts. They love you so much, and you inspire them. And I watched you that weekend. They were touched and inspired by your story. But then, you could have gone up to your hotel room and put your feet up for the rest of the night. The whole conference with them, that night, and this is the thing that's special about Virginia, is when you talk with her, you feel like you're the only person in the room, and you're the most important person in the room. And I can't tell you how much that meant to our families. But it made me laugh because I saw this happening, and like I said, the movie it wasn't out yet. And I was like, this is just prepping her for the year to come, because I knew this movie was going to have a huge impact. your appearances, you know, you've gone all across the country. Talk about this last year. So you get a Hollywood movie, you get an Emmy winner to play you, and you've gone all over the country to promote it. Tell us about what it's been like and the people you've met along the way.
Oh, it's been amazing. It has, but you know, they're not words. I mean, this has been the most amazing experience that I've ever had. But the best part of this experience has been I have met thousands of parents around the country who related to the film. I didn't want anything more than that to happen. But I've had a great time. You know, going around speaking to parents when we had to stop traveling. I had done, I know, 30 trips talking to parents after the film. That's been the best thing. You know, the one thing I always wanted was to leave a legacy to the world. I don't think I know everything. I really don't. But I've learned a lot, you know, and I'm looking at myself blushing when you're talking about me. So, because I really do appreciate that. But what is more important to me than anything else is that one parent looks at hears something I said or sees something that's happened and says, I can do that too. You know, because we as parents, sometimes people say to us, you have no right to be involved in what's going on in school. You have no voice, you know, we don't really want you here. And I want to dispel that any way I can. I want parents to know they have every right to speak out for their children. And the benefit is 20-fold. I mean, it creates a wonderful environment for you and your child. William and I talked more when I was advocating for him than we ever had in his entire life. And so it's been great. I mean, my son is really excited about the movie. He's doing great in life, but he wanted our story to be told after a while. But it's been fun. I met all the actors in the movie. Matthew Modine is the most amazing person ever. Uzo Aduba, who played me, and I think she did an amazing job. Well, I know she did because one of my children called and said, "Ma, she sounded just like you." And I went, "Yeah, she did." But she did a great job, and all of the other actors that were in the film. I've gotten to know them a little and gotten to talk to them. They all support children, and so it's been an amazing effort. And it's been fun, you know, um, to go around the country and talk about my life and my story and my family, and it's been a wonderful experience. I mean, I've really enjoyed it, and I continue to enjoy it. I'm delighted that Netflix is still running the movie, and parents are still calling me and writing me. People find me on Facebook, you know, in those little places where you find people, and I write everybody back as much as I can. And I might miss one or two, but I spend a lot of nights up writing letters. And it's been great. It's been a great way to get my voice heard. And it's been a great way to begin to leave this fight. You know,
Yeah.
like I said, I'll always be around. You know, I've made such good friends, you and Colleen and the Amy's and Cynthia. I mean, I made really good friends, and I don't want that to ever end. And because I cherish my friendships with people, but at some point, I need to back down and let you all continue
Well,
the fight.
I think that's the important thing is that um, it's not just one woman, as incredible as you are. We all have a part to play, and
Absolutely.
we are much stronger as an army because let's face it, we are facing some incredible opposition. It seems like, um, you know, just like when I feel like we've maybe hit the peak and now we're going to coast,
Yeah.
a whole new, you know, or a new issue that trips us up and makes it difficult for us to get what our kids need. And you've talked about, you know, the DC Opportunity Scholarship was for private schools,
Right.
but you know, you support charter, everything. And we connected because I'm an online mom, and you
Are
board of an online school in Arkansas. Talk
yeah.
to us a little bit about like what made you decide that you would invest your advocacy and energy into that, and why you think online education is important.
You know, I actually started thinking about it a little bit when I had a child, a stepchild, that was put out of DC public schools. And we had to find, he was expelled. He had a lot of emotional problems. He was bipolar, and he was really struggling and just getting in trouble and got expelled. And I had to find um, some kind of program. I said, okay, I will take the time and I will teach him at home. I homeschooled him. And during those days, homeschooling was not looked down. It was really hard because I had to get permission from DC to homeschool him. And once I got that permission, I had to have a licensed teacher involved. I was really lucky. I had a twin sister that taught there, and she became my licensed teacher. And but finding something to teach him online was really hard. And so we ended up finding a program that was a tremendous cost to us, but he did fine. And so I saw a child who everybody had kind of given up on do really, really well. We did seventh and eighth grade in 1 year. And so when he went back into a brick and mortar school, um, he just excelled. I mean, because he needed to do that one-on-one and he needed to do it at home. So after that experience, I always thought, it'd be really great if charter schools, because charter school movement started, and I said it'd be really great if there was some online charter schools or online schools that emerged as a result of the charter school program. And there were two, and I was at a meeting one time, and they celebrated the kids from Connections Academy. I'll say it on TV. And I remember this little girl saying, this was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because I'm little and I got bullied. And then the Connections Academy had come to their city, one of the first, and school became exciting and fun. And she just kept going on and on. And that even confirmed more that their children need something different. So when they came to me here in Arkansas, after I moved here, and they came to me and said, are you interested? I went, yes, indeed. And I mean, I really wanted that to happen. Arkansas is a rural state. A lot of kids they have some rules that force kids to have to go 40 and 50 miles. If the schools don't have a certain number of kids, they close them in cities. Mm-hmm. And I think there are 100 and something districts. And so kids were having to go enormous amounts of distance to be educated. And I thought, oh, this is something I can help with. I had fought hard for all kinds of access to all kinds of educational environments. And this was one that had been on my mind for several years. This is an amazing school here in Arkansas. And we have students from around the state. And and we graduated 142 kids. It was our first graduation. And they did it online, and they did graduation online because of the coronavirus. And it was so beautiful, I cried. And I really think that there are kids that just thrive in online environments, and this is a good one here, and there are many others. And but I love the school. I do, and I'm happy with a lot of the work that I'm doing, but I look forward to board meetings, and that's kind of crazy. Of course, I can't wait to our board meetings so I can hear how the school's doing. And so during the coronavirus, we actually took some kids whose parents were really having a tough time and made them a part of our school temporarily if they go back to their other schools next year, whatever happens. But for now, they had a good time. So the principal told us just recently that some of those kids, I think there were 80 of them, have decided that they're going to stay with the online school. And so we have kids that are on the rodeo circuit. We have 18 kids on the rodeo circuit, and those
Wow.
kids were really having a tough time keeping up in school. And so with the online school, they're able to go out to their rodeos, thing shows and keep up with their classwork. It's been an um, amazing journey with the school. We're 5 years old to this month, and so that's been great. But it confirmed for me that we have to have all kind of education for all kind of children.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. Amen. My son's a Connections Academy grad, and
I need that.
yeah, and it set him up for success, academic success, and that's what we want for
Yeah.
for our kids. We don't, I don't know if it was Howard Fuller that said it, but all education is public education. It doesn't matter the model.
No, it doesn't.
Getting these kids to the finish line with the skills that they need to go on either to higher ed or the military or the workforce. And these online schools are doing it. And I love that your school stepped up, as did many online schools across the country, to help students during this crisis.
Yeah. A lot of parents have done great. I'm so proud of my children who have taught their children. And I have 4 grandchildren. And but I think that the parents who said, okay, there are other options out there and found them as online schools, I'm really proud of them as well. And but the nice thing about it does allow kids to be successful. And this has been 20 years ago. And since the pandemic started, I got a letter from the child that I homeschooled who said, you really cared about my education, and I want you to know I'm doing well. So I'm from the place of find something the child can do well in. And that's why I believe the choice should be the parents, because you know your children. And there are all kind of opportunities out here for kids right now that will give them a chance to be successful in life. And so that's why I can't leave. I can't stop. I like talking about it. I like being there. I like helping in any way that I can. And I love the people involved. And I love you. And I remember this same meeting that you were talking about me at. You had been ill. And I was like, why is she here? And you said, because I believe in what I'm doing, and or something to that effect. And it's important for me to be here. And it's surgery. So, I'm seeing so many people that are so special out there. And that's such a wonderful thing to see, because so many years, not too long ago, it was just a few people and a few parents who were willing to stand up and use their voices and fight for their kids who got knocked down. And now, and I see all these great parent organizations out here who are doing fantastic work, and it makes me smile if that I might have had a small part in making sure the parents had the opportunity to use their voices for their children's journey.
Well,
You know.
you certainly paved the way for many of us. And I think it goes back to, I think you're a natural advocate. I think that's just instilled in you. And I think you got some of that from your family and your upbringing. And, you know, there's a lot going on right now in this country. We have this virus that has interrupted education. And then we have this whole matter of police brutality and the Black Lives Matter movement, what we've seen across the country. And I don't want to let you go without talking about that a little bit, because I think it's important, because you haven't talked about that yet. You grew up in a segregated South.
I did.
And faced discrimination, and it touched your family. And talk about that, and talk about where we've been and where we're at now, and where we need to go. And you know, as an advocate, how do you feel about what's happening right now?
You know, I grew up with parents who taught us that we have to fight and serve the community. But my first experiences growing up here in Arkansas were scary. You know, the Klan burned across in our yard because my father became the assistant superintendent of the school district, scared us to death. So I've always had to deal with that whole thing. I have 4 sisters, and we were actually protected, you know, because they weren't sure what would be done. But I come from a rich background of civil rights activists, people who fought hard for all kinds of things, who instilled in me the desire to continue to fight for what is right. But on the other hand, my parents taught us to love everybody, you know, and to not assume because somebody is not Black that they're going to be mean to you, even though I do believe that systematic racism exists in this country, and that we have to do something to make sure that doesn't continue to happen. But I'm hopeful, and I'm talking with people that you know, want to make changes. I mean, real changes, and as we grapple with George Floyd's murder and the protests that have occurred since then, 2 things came to my mind. One, this may be a time when we can actually see people communicating and talking. And I know my white friends have all called to make sure that I knew that they were standing with me. But somebody said, do you ever have to deal with that? And I went, yeah. You know, I just don't make it define me. You know, I've been in many places where they didn't want me to come into because I was Black. I've been in meetings where people wouldn't look at me. And, you know, but I fight for kids, and I can't and even though I do fight for Black kids when I see the need, I fight for every kid because I think that's what's important. But this is tough. I mean, it's tough, but I'm encouraged by the peaceful protests and the peaceful conversations. And I remember, you know, I'm old enough to remember when Dr. King was leading the fight. And I remember how he talked so quietly and gently about peaceful protests, and how, and believe it or not, something I heard him say, I took to our legislative fight. And I remember telling the parents, we are going to fight with dignity and information, and we're going to go up there and they're going to show us respect, because we are going to show them respect. And I remember telling them something I always told my kids, everybody has an opinion, but you don't have to attack theirs. Just make sure you know yours. And I think this is a time when we can all have a conversation, a real conversation. A friend of mine said, I never think about my Black friends being treated in a racist way. I just assume they're not. And now I know you are. And it's not a conversation we've ever had. And I think that when you're silent about anything, the silence is almost a betrayal. I mean, if somebody sees me treated a bad way and they don't speak up, then where are they? What are they thinking? And Dr. King always said, the people we have to worry about are the people that don't say anything, that sit back and allow it to happen. So my optimistic, bright forecast for this country, whether somebody want to hear it or not, is that we'll communicate better. We'll find a way to talk about the differences and the experiences that we've had in this country over the last 100+ years, and and will make such the new world will be so great much more improved than what we've had to deal with. My great grandfather was a slave, and my great grandfather baked had a bakery, and his tea cakes were so good that everybody, rich, black, white, everybody wanted to buy them. And he opened a bakery in Little Rock that there's a plaque to him still there. And from that little bakery, he bought some of his family, his wife, his children, his two brothers out of slavery. And that, to me, that's where I'm from. And so I know that there's a better way if you communicate with people, and that's what I'll do. And but I don't, the negative stuff I think is hard, and I don't want it to get into what we have to do to reopen schools or to re-educate children. I think that we really do have to think about it. Somebody's going to get me on this, but I do think we have to think about all children, all children's needs, and I'm Black, so I'm on my neighbors. I live in a totally African American community in Little Rock, and I care about what happens to my kids. But a friend called yesterday and said he lives in a totally white community in Texas, and he cares about those kids. So we have to find a middle place to be. And I don't want to see us get so caught up in we're gonna explore what is holding African American kids back, but what is holding kids with special needs back, and what is holding white kids back, and what is holding Asian kids back. But I think it has to be one conversation and not 25. So that's my thought. I am, my dad told us, my dad was dark skinned from North Carolina. My mother was real light skinned from Arkansas. And so they ran into lots of things during their marriage of 40 years before he passed away. And one of the things was they get stopped all the time because police would think she was white and he was Black, and it was a law against Blacks and whites marrying during those days. And so my daddy said it used to really get on my nerves until I understood they couldn't tell. It was a law. And he said, and then I understood they had to stop us. And so my mom always carried a birth certificate, always with her.
Wow.
And yeah, it was really interesting. And then my grandfather had to go get them from the police department when they got stopped one time. And he looked white too. So I said, so what did Grandpa do? He took his birth certificate. So, and those things are real. And I'm not making light of them because it was hard growing up in Arkansas. It was. And, I had experiences in high school that were horrible, that were hurtful and horrible. But I think that we have an opportunity right now to talk about all those things that hurt us and to make changes and have people understand a little bit better about what's going on. Everybody was outraged about his death, about his murder. Everybody, black, white, it didn't matter. People were outraged. And I think that opens us up to a different kind of conversation than we've ever had before. So I, I think that these young people out here um, using their voices to have the right kind of conversation are acting in a way that I would act. And I'm staying involved because I want to be involved, because I think that I can talk to people in a way that helps.
I'm so grateful that you shared your views on that, and I do. I think your optimism, you're right to be optimistic, and I think it's an opportunity. We have an opportunity in this country to communicate, and let's start operating from maybe a place of understanding. And I think you and I both agree that education can heal a lot of wounds for a lot of communities if we get kids the education that they rightly deserve. And as long as you're fighting, I'll keep fighting. We'll agree to that, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I'm gonna be here, and I know you're gonna be here, and we're gonna be okay. I do think that, and I'm not overly. I'm not, idealistic. I'm not naive. I know what it takes, and somebody said to me, a young person said to me the other day, "We're fighting hard, Miss Virginia," and I said, "Oh, y'all don't even know what it's like to be a warrior. We were warriors. We fought hard." And I said, "But we fought with our voices and with information and with all those things that ultimately make you win in a fight." I think the whole issue of I think it's horrible, but those of us that grew up in the South, we've seen it all our lives. And so now we're going to talk about it. And now changes will be made. So, but, the world should know I love you. And I cherish our friendship, and I hope it lasts forever and ever. And there are a whole bunch of other people that are not Black that I love. And I'm not willing to not say that publicly, but I do want the conversations to continue. And I don't mind peaceful protests because we did a whole bunch of them. And we took over the grounds of the Department of Education for almost 2 weeks. And so, but we talked and we came to a way to communicate, and that's what's really important.
Yeah. You got to take that, whatever emotion you feel, or if it's anger or frustration, you got to channel it in a positive way, because then nobody hears you. They don't hear your message if you're so angry that you can't communicate to the opposition, and that's where we win hearts and minds, and in this movement, and I think in any advocacy battle, you're really trying to win hearts and minds. And so, but we have to do that through conversation and dialogue. And I know you've modeled that for me over the years, and I hope our parents watching today and anybody who watches this later will take that message to heart. And but we should be optimistic, because we live in an amazing country, and we can do a lot of good when the people get together and make it happen. Virginia, thank you so much for taking the time on a Friday night to talk to me. Your book out. It's School Choice and Easy to Keep, and you can get it at Amazon, right?
Amazon, Barnes & Noble, they both have it.
Great.
Yeah, and you'll enjoy it. I'm gonna tell you, I enjoyed writing this book. A lot.
It's so good. It's so good. And there's so much in here that we didn't touch on today, but I think you families would enjoy it. And then the movie, Miss Virginia, is on Netflix and all kinds of streaming platforms. If you haven't seen it, please go watch it. I promise you will be inspired. And if you're a parent that is, you know, facing challenges with your kids' education and you think you don't have a voice, you don't have the power to make a difference, watch Virginia's story because it will change your mind for sure and inspire you to advocate for your children and to make a difference for your kids. Everybody, there's just so many comments of people so grateful for you taking the time today.
I'll look at the comments too. I love that. I do.
Well, we love you, Virginia, and thank you again for joining us on the Parent Exchange. And yeah, Virginia's on Facebook and Twitter, you guys. So if you have questions about school choice or advocacy or how you can make a difference as an individual parent, reach out to her because she is a wealth of experience and knowledge. And she's just one of the most courageous people and selfless people that I know. And I always feel lifted up after I spend some time with Virginia. So look for her on Facebook, watch the movie, get the book. And I hope, Virginia, I get to see you in person really soon.
Me too, Tillie. I love you. And thank you all so much for being here. And thank you for having me, Tillie.
You're welcome. You're most welcome. All right, everybody, that's it for the Parent Exchange. We will see you next week. Colleen will be here with a special guest. And we've got all kinds of great things coming up in the group. So stay tuned. Thanks so much.